The House Transportation Committee recently had a hearing on the governor's carbon tax. Can you talk about that?
Well, the governor's got this plan to tax many of our employers and supposedly has a list of 130 that he would tax. Claims that some of the tax money will go to give relief to those that are most adversely affected. When I pressed for answers, actually when I gave an example, they were unaware. They just didn't know. When you pressed for answers, they didn't have answers, they didn't have details. They couldn't tell you what it was going to cost per unit, where the money was coming from, or any of that. And it was really, really disappointing, considering they've calculated that this is going to bring in $1 billion in new tax revenue. Yet they couldn't give you any of the assumptions that they used to calculate that number. And that's very troublesome to me.
How would the governor's tax on employers and producers affect people in Southwest Washington?
I think there is going to be a huge impact. There's potential for electricity rates to go up for all of the citizens in the area. There's a huge potential for job loss in the area. Anytime you tax an employer more, you take more out of their pocket, that's less that they have for salaries and benefits. And what ends up happening most typically is people get laid off. And when we live in an area where our unemployment is already above the state average, tends to stay high even when times improve, we just can't afford any more job losses. We need to be creating jobs. We need to be doing things to incentivize people to create new jobs in our area, to expand their businesses in our area, rather than to destroy jobs.
What could the legislature do to incentivize job creation?
Well, there's a lot of ways we can do it. One of the things that we can do is we can make it easier for them to get a permit. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to allow them to do something harmful to the environment. Just speeding up the time that it takes to actually get a permit doesn't mean you're relaxing any regulation. They're still going to have the same requirements. But if they can get a permit faster, they can put people to work faster, and it'll take less time and less money to get that permit. That's more money that they have for the expansion that they're trying to do. That's one of the ways that we can do it. Another way is there's a lot of taxes out there that people think that if we cut the tax rate, we're going to lose money. In some instances, there are tax rates that are out there that if we cut it for a certain segment of the economy, we actually get that kind of that sector of the economy to come into our state. There's nobody doing anything with helicopters, rotorcraft. We've got a chance to bring a company into this state with 60 very good paying jobs and benefits. They're aerospace workers that we could get them to come into this state. Nobody else is doing it. If we just say we're going to give you a lower tax rate than what's currently on the books for doing this, we'll get those jobs. And guess what? There'll be no reduction in the amount that we take in revenue, because they'll be generating new tax dollars. And it'll be done using a lower rate. With a higher rate, we get a higher rate on zero. Lower rate on millions of dollars. The math's pretty simple. Lowering the tax rate in many instances does bring in new jobs, and that's one of the key things that we need to do.